Hi everyone, this is your Entrep Guru, Avinash Ramsabag, and today we're going to be taking a look at business models. So, what exactly is a business model? It's the rationale of how an organization is going to create, deliver, and capture value. So, the components of a business model are, first of all, its value proposition, which looks at the benefit that the firm intends to deliver. So basically, what we are looking at here is what will make a customer want to come to your business. The next area is beneficiary. So we are taking a look at exactly who is our target market. Third area is operations. And in this case, we are looking at what within your organization gives you an internal source of competitive advantage. The next area is product differentiation, which is looking at how do you stand out from your competitors. Fifth area is income generation, and in this case, we are looking at how you intend to make money. And the last area is your growth model, and we are looking at exactly where do you see yourself in the future. So the first area we're going to go into in a little more depth, it's value proposition. And as I said, it looks at how do you create value in the eyes of the customer. So it is taking a look at what will make a customer want to come to your business and want to pay you for your product. So the first one will be your product offering. And in this case now, it's exactly what product, service, or combination of product or service that you are offering. Now, within that, we would also take a look at the characteristics of those products. And most of the times, you will base your characteristics on market research, based on what customers have indicated that they would like to see in your product. The other area will be whether your business is going to be selling goods that are standardized or customized. Now, in this case now, if it is that your products are standardized, that means that there's one set standard, there's no variation to the product. Now, in that case, there can be advantages to the organization of doing so because they can perfect it. So it can basically be a product that, because you are not changing it in any major ways, you tend to have it done in a manner that it doesn't vary over time, which customers may like. However, if it is customized, they may find that, it's like they can adapt it to what it is that they would like, and it is more suitable to them, so therefore it may have more value to them. We may also try to look at your distribution channels. So whether it is that you are using a direct distribution channel, are you going to be going to the customer yourself, or is it that you would use an indirect distribution channel, whether you go through a wholesaler or retailer? What exactly are you doing? But just bear in mind, sometimes when you use indirect channels, yes, you may have more access, a greater level of access to the customer, but at the same time, you may not have enough control over what takes place. So there are advantages and disadvantages. And then afterwards, you need to decide whether you're going to make the product yourself or are you going to buy it. Now, making it, yes, you have control over what you are doing. You may be able to ensure that you keep it within a set price and stuff. But at the same time, we have to bear in mind that there are some initial costs for things such as equipment and stuff that you will have to put out. You will also have to hire staff. You will have overheads and stuff like that, which at the present time you may not be able to afford. So therefore, it may make sense to buy it from someone or outsource it. And if it is that you are doing that, then these may be people who may be better equipped at that point in time to deal with it. They may specialize and therefore they may be able to cut costs. All right. So again, similar to before, you do have to weigh the advantages versus the disadvantages of doing so for your business model. As I mentioned before, the second area is your beneficiary. And for the beneficiary, we are looking at exactly who is your customer. Now, this one, many people forget to put in, and they focus more on whether it is areas such as business-to-business relationships, business-to-customer relationships, business-to-government. They also pay attention to the geographical scope, whether it's local, regional, or international, and also the market itself, whether it's a general market, meaning catering to everybody, or a niche, which is more focused. But the thing about it is that if you don't define exactly who your customer is, then it doesn't make sense getting into these other three. You need to know who is the customer in terms of gender, who is the customer in terms of age, who is the customer in terms of geographic location, who is the customer in terms of income grouping. Because when we are able to understand exactly who the customer is, then we will be able to tailor the product and the offering that the business has better suited, making it better suited to the needs of that customer. The third area, is operations. And with operations, as I mentioned before, we are looking at what are the internal sources of competitive advantage for your organization. So basically, what can, within the operations of your business, what within that day-to-day runnings of the business can give you a push ahead of your competitors? And in this case, there are some areas that we can look at. So the first one that we could look at is the organizational structure, the culture of the organization. Imagine you run an organization where your employees feel free to come to you with ideas, where your employees, when they listen to their customers, they try to develop different products and be innovative in nature. That's part of culture. And being one who is willing to learn in the organization. Now, not every organization has those things. In terms of the structure too, when we take a look at structures, we can see ones where there are many different levels. So those are taller organizational structures. And within taller organizational structures, what we find is that businesses take a little longer to adapt to changes. Whereas if it's a little flatter, then the businesses are able to adapt quicker to changes. And in this case, now it gives the organization an advantage too. So the structure or the culture that you have in the organization, it can give you an advantage over everybody else. The skills, the way in which you train your workers, right? Sometimes it is that these workers have a higher level of skills than everybody else. Maybe it is that you are one that engages in continuous training. And that is something that makes you stand apart from everybody else. Technology, maybe it is that you have technology that no one else has. Sometimes it is that you could have developed technology for your specific area, something that no one else has been able to produce before. And then afterwards, other people are actually getting into the area and then they realize, but we don't have as efficient technology as these other people. So sometimes it is that the technology can help you stand apart. Next one is your intellectual property. Sometimes it is that depending on the intellectual property that you have and the way in which it is set up, you will not have people competing against you, right? You can actually ensure that other persons may not or may find it more difficult to get into the market if it is that you ensure that you have intellectual property such as patents, right? Such as design rights, even having copyrights over what it is that you're doing, and trademarks. The other one could be resources. Sometimes it is that you have certain resources that give you a competitive advantage. Let's say a supplier. Your supplier might be the only supplier that you have, that there is, for this product. And therefore, you might have a contract with that supplier that sets you apart from everybody else. Your location. Sometimes it is that you may have had some form of a preferential agreement with regards to where you are located. And therefore, that also sets you apart. So this is something that we explore in terms of the internal operations of your business. Now we move on to product differentiation, and there are basically 5 different ways here in which you can differentiate. And the first way is in terms of operational excellence. Sometimes the experience that a customer has when they come to your business is so much better than everybody else that they are willing to come to your business. They are willing to basically say, you know what, I feel that difference and I might even be willing to pay more for this product compared to someone else's own because of the superior service that I get. In terms of product quality, sometimes it is that the quality of the product is so much better than everyone else. Maybe it is that, everyone in the industry seeks to meet some form of an ISO standard, maybe. But at the same time, you might actually go beyond that ISO standard and develop standards that are higher than that. And therefore, you outdo everyone else, any of your competitors, that is. In terms of innovative leadership, sometimes it is that you pride yourself in terms of research and development, and therefore you come up with better, newer products than everybody else. And people look out for you to be the one to come up with these new products. So you are known as the innovator in that industry. In terms of cost, sometimes you're able to keep costs down. And so, for example, if it is that you let's say you are able to make a contract with a supplier, and that supplier has agreed upon a specific price, whereas other persons who may not have that contract, they may be facing variations in terms of their costs, and therefore they may have to adjust price, and you might be able to keep it down. Or let's say it is that you are able to produce a larger amount of products and therefore benefit from economies of scale. In that case, you are able to keep your costs of products down in terms of their unit costs. Then afterwards, you can take a look at your networks. Maybe it is that you have joined up with other persons, and therefore, through joint efforts, you can actually push this product more than anyone else. Maybe it is that you have established yourself with a specific brand. Maybe it is that you have decided that your product goes in line with someone else's product, and therefore you'll decide to sell together, right? All of these things. Maybe it is that you have decided that you are going to sell in a specific store that, a lot of people like to go to. So therefore it is that you are able to get your product out there compared to anybody else. So these are the areas in which you can differentiate from your competitors. The next area is income generation. And under income generation, there are a couple of areas, such as the first one is operating leverage. And with operating leverage, we are looking at how do you manage in terms of your fixed and variable costs. Is it that your fixed costs are a lot more? In that case, then you have a high operating leverage. Or is it that your variable costs are a lot more? In that case, you have a lower operating leverage. Now, what will happen is that if it is that your fixed costs are too high, what it means is that we have to take into consideration the amount of money, the amount of products that we'll have to sell, because what will happen is that the higher the fixed costs per unit, then the higher the overall cost of that product. And then also, the higher the fixed costs, no matter how much production is taking place, we always have to make sure that we try to spread those costs amongst how much that we produce. The next one is our revenue sources. Where exactly are we going to be generating revenue from? Sometimes it is that you generate revenue only from the sale of your products or services. However, you may generate revenue from alternative sources, such as from advertisements. In terms of your pricing strategy, are you going to pursue a fixed pricing strategy or variable pricing strategy? Right? If it is that you are using a variable pricing strategy, in that case, you may use things such as going rate. You may use things such as price skimming. You may use price discrimination, competitor-based pricing. If it is that you're using a fixed pricing strategy, you can use something such as a cost-plus pricing strategy. So with regards to income generation, these are the major areas. You also have to pay attention to things such as the volume of products that you're going to sell and also your margins. In our growth model, we also have to pay attention to where exactly do you see yourself in the future? Where do you see your business in the future? Part of it will tie into whether it is that you are pursuing an income model, a subsistence model, a growth model, or a speculative model. With the subsistence model, you are basically doing it for survival purposes and out of necessity. With the income model, you are doing it because of the fact that you are seeing that this type of business can generate a certain type of income for you. With the growth model, you are focusing on putting in a high amount of money for a high return. And with the speculative model, you are also putting in a high amount of money, but you don't know what the return is going to be. In addition, we're going to have to pay attention to the time ambitions. And in this case here, we are paying attention to where do you see yourself in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. In terms of the scope of ambitions, we are looking at whether it is that your business is going to remain local. Do you see yourself expanding regionally or internationally? And in terms of your size ambitions, whether you are going to remain small, whether you're going to go medium or large. Okay, so we now take a look at our business model canvas, and this is a pictorial representation of what the business model would look like. So when we take a look at it, as you would see here, we take a look at our key partners. So who exactly are the major stakeholders in our business? So in terms of, for example, persons such as our suppliers, our investors, those would be some of our major partners, our distribution channels. Who exactly are we using to distribute? When we take a look at our key activities, what are the major activities involved in our business in terms of one, value proposition, distribution again, and also how do we establish relationships with our customers. In terms of value proposition, again, similar to before, so we would take a look at what would make customers want to come into our business, so the product itself, the degree of customization, distribution channels, and whether it is that we make or buy the product. When it comes to customer relationships, how do we keep our customers? How do we establish relationships with our customers? What is the cost also to obtain that customer? When it comes to segments, we would take a look at exactly which customer segment are we targeting, and we need to be specific with regards to that, and that's what we mean by the archetypes with regards to our customers. With key resources, we are looking at what are the major resources in our business in order to create our value proposition. And in that case, now we can look at our suppliers, our distributors. Those are some examples of some key resources. And then what channels are we using to get it to the customer? Those are also some of the areas that we would look at. In terms of the cost structure, what are our major costs? And then in terms of revenue, where exactly or how exactly are we going to be making revenue? Now, these here are some sample business models in terms of the canvas. So we have in terms of key partners for Facebook, we have key activities, resources, value proposition. So similar to what we would have been talking about before, but in this case here, it's more of an applied example. And we also have one here for Google that you all can take a look at. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope that you have a better understanding now of business models. This is your Entrep Guru. Don't forget, like and subscribe to Entrep Guru. This is Avinash Ramsbag. Goodbye.